Hey there. Today we are going to be talking about preschool domains. I know that we have talked a bit about this in the past, and we are going to continue talking a little bit about this. And I really wanted to focus today on thinking about how you can bring this into being able to communicate with parents, how the learning looks when you're a play based developmental preschool, as well as how that learning then transfers to a more traditional elementary school, and how what you're doing is actually getting kids ready for their future learning. So, we are going to go through some different content, and then you are going to have some assignments to work on independently that will help you collect information and have resources kind of at your fingertips to be able to really embed all of this in what you're already doing. Um, so, why are preschool domains important to know if we're a play based school? I think that question has come up a few different times, and I think it is really important to understand why this is important. So, the first reason is that it guides your day. Embedding domains into play based activities allows for students to explore areas they may not naturally go to on their own and have exposure to learning that will allow them to be successful throughout their lives. And this is really such an important piece of what the domains provide, is that ability to have exposure to things that they may not even know they like, or things that they may need a little extra work on that they don't know about. I think it's, important to think about this from the kind of from the standpoint of 3 and 4 year olds, and what their exposure to the world is at this point, and how that exposure can be expanded by the things that we bring into the classroom. So, if say, "What are you interested to a 3 year old?" they may have a very limited scope of what that is because they've only had so much life experience. But you may bring in something within one of these domains that then perks their interest and really guides them down a path that they didn't even know existed. And so that is really, really important as early childhood educators, and just really allowing for kids to be able to expand their learning and touch on kind of all the domains that we know are important as they become learners, and sort of transition through their learning experience. It also allows us to speak to parents clearly about what is actually happening during their day. So, your mission is to provide a high quality, play based education in a safe, respectful environment that builds a foundation for lifelong learning. And sometimes parents need to understand how that can occur when kids are just quote unquote playing. And I think that that is something that teachers sometimes struggle with having the language for. But I think that once you um, really look and kind of incorporate these domains into your day, then you're able to have that language. You're able to say, yes, they're playing with Play-Doh, but you know what that does for them? It strengthens their fine motor skills, so that when they get to the point where they need to write, then their hands are stronger. Or, they're doing a puzzle, and for a puzzle, it really strengthens their cognitive ability and their problem solving ability, which then translates really strongly into their success as they become, learners at the next level. So, just really understanding that is super important and super helpful for you. Um, okay, so you received a form link for a survey, and I want you to just pause the training right now. Take a few minutes and think about what your values are, what you see as what is play-based education to you. So there's just a few questions you're going to answer, and they're just, what do you see play-based education as, and then what are some challenges you see within that environment. So I want you to pause this, click over to that, and then come on back when you're ready. All right, welcome back. Hopefully, you filled that out and took a little time to think about what it is that, you know, how you see the play based learning, what that is to you, how that works in a child's development, and then really some of the challenges that you see in play based education. Um, Okay, now we're going to jump into the preschool domains. And just keep in mind that you are going to be doing some independent work on this after the training, that you'll be really coming back to these domains to start creating some options for activities throughout the day. And the domains that we're going to cover are social emotional, cognitive, motor, literacy, language, and self help and adaptive skills. And these are really the main areas that, as early childhood educators, it is our responsibility to cover and to make sure that kids have access to so that they can be successful learners as they move through their learning experience. Okay, so social emotional learning, what is it? Some of the ways to look at social emotional are taking others' perspectives, empathy, self-regulation, communicating needs, playing games. All of that falls under social emotional. So it is really, really a big area. It's important because it's the beginning of learning social and emotional skills in a school setting, and it also creates the baseline of all school skills. So you may be the first people that are interacting with these children in the area of social emotional that are not family or very close friends. And so it's really critical that they begin the process of working on these skills in a school setting. A lot of things are very different between home and school, obviously. And when kids start navigating this world in a school setting, it can be hard because they're used to, the kind of the rules and what happens at home. They're used to the parents maybe, making it easy for them, or, creating an environment where they don't maybe have to work as hard. But once they get in the school setting, all that comes into play. There's all different kids with different, different styles and different energies. And this is the place for them to really learn that. It's so critical and so important and exciting that it can happen at this level. And these social emotional skills are truly the baseline of all schools' success skills. So that means, all the learning to learn skills, all the, how do we get along with other people? How do we disagree appropriately? How do we take turns? All of that falls under this. And this is the time that they're really starting to emerge and starting to learn them. Obviously, this is a super critical piece of preschool learning. And just some examples of things that you can teach, that you can use, are reading books with social emotional themes, playing emotion matching labeling games, starting each day with a check in, add feelings to your calendar. And hopefully, everybody is incorporating that calendar into their school day, because it's a really great place for learning to happen. And I love to see when there's a feelings piece of that the kids, have a chance to share during that kind of safe circle time. And then, this is really such a great time to be teaching self calming strategies from day one, because not all kids respond to the same self calming strategies. So, a lot of times we'll say, well, all they need to do is take a breath, but that doesn't work for every kid. It's really a great opportunity to try different things. Do yoga in your classroom, find different ways to you know that different kids respond, so that they know, and then they can take that's a gift you're giving them, that they can take as they move into the upper grades. um, Creating a culture of kindness, using specific language, all, throughout the day. That was so kind. That was such a nice thing to do for your friend. You can do bucket fillers and compliment circles. And then also, along with this, is really teaching those problem solving skills and conflict resolution as standalone skills. So, what do we do when we can't figure out what to do? What do we do when we can't get along, when we have a disagreement? How do we work that out without an adult solving it for us? That's where we get to start teaching them at this level. Okay, the next area is cognitive, the next domain. And this is really, at its very base, is just the ability to learn and reason. basic stuff, right? Except really the building block of all learning. Cognitive development is about how well a child can think through problems or solutions so that they can solve them on their own without assistance from an adult or a peer. Um, and children who are engaged in early cognitive development will be better able to understand abstract concepts such as time, past and present, size, order, things like that. So the more that we allow kids to really solve their own problems and really going with what it is that they go with. So it's important because we want the exposure to experiences where um, they have to problem solve and think is just critical at this stage. And so some of those activities are really, putting a roadblock up for a child and then, or a group of kids, and then having them solve the problem on their own. Activities that require hiding and finding, singing, storytelling, and retelling. One of my favorite things I love to be able to read a story to a class and then have somebody retell it in their own words. It's actually really adorable and fascinating to watch them kind of process through that. Embedding numbers and letters throughout the day in fun ways, labeling everything in the room, another really great way for them to start being independent and being able to identify those labels. Learning and following those procedures on their own, things as simple as, pulling names for line leaders and things like that they understand, or where do they put their backpack, or where do they put their water bottles. All of that goes into that. Matching games, arts and crafts, playing outside, following instruction games, access to a variety of books. Really, really important to encourage that early exploration of books. And then really just putting anything out there that allows them to solve a difficult problem or come up with a solution. And then the really important thing is letting them go forward with whatever solution they come up with, as opposed to us trying to make it better or fix it or tell them to do it differently. Because the only way that they complete the circle of sort of that cognitive development is that they try something, and whether it works or not. Now, of course, if there's safety issues, we wouldn't, let that happen. But other than that, let them try it, see if that works. And if they don't, then they get to process what went wrong. How could we have done that differently? All of that, but letting that process play out is really, really critical for that cognitive development. Okay, and the next one is motor. And we're looking at motor. We're learning about both small and large muscle groups, both gross and fine motor is what we say. And these are really, really important. I think that in general, we tend to really emphasize the gross motor skills at this age. So, the kids are playing and they're running and they're climbing and they're doing all of that great stuff, which is so, so good. But we sometimes, don't focus as much on the fine motor skills. And we also tend to let kids kind of veer away from that if it's not something that they like, which some kids, it's not their preference. But it is super important, because um, if they're not engaging in those fine motor strengthening skills, that when it comes time for writing, it's really, really hard for them. And so I encourage you to really be thoughtful in that fine motor piece and incorporate that every day in a way that you're pretty sure all kids are having access. And again, I'm not saying, force them to write and in any way. There's so many other ways to do fine motor. And I'm going to let you guys do a little bit of work on discovering that on your own in the assignment that you're going to do after this. Because like I said, successful fine motor skills are critical to school success. There's no question about that. So how do we teach, for the motor? For the gross motor, we know this: running, jumping, climbing, throwing, all of that, right? We're obstacle courses, super fun. I love an obstacle course. Dancing, all that stuff that we do all the time and that the kids really usually, move towards. Great. For fine motor, there's so many different ways you can do this. You can do Play-Doh, putty, painting, scooping, water play, gardening, cutting, painting, folding, building with blocks, tweezer activities, which I know I've mentioned before, one of my favorite activities, the big child tweezers, not little tweezers. Stamps, anything that makes them use their hands in a way that builds strength is going to be awesome. And then obviously coloring, drawing, writing, all of that goes into that too. But that's not even the most critical piece. And again, it's really about the idea of being thoughtful throughout your day, is that just making sure that this stuff is out and embedded in their day, where of course these are things that, kids do in a preschool setting. But we want to make sure that throughout the day, we have a plan for making sure that kids are accessing all of these domains so that we're sure that kids are really getting what they need. Okay, literacy and language. And these are sort of all of our precursors to reading and writing and all of that. So, what is it? It's early literacy, it's oral language, reading aloud, asking questions, getting needs met verbally, sharing opinions, friendships, all of that falls under this. So, again, this is not about like sitting down, doing a worksheet, and, teaching your ABCs. All of that should be embedded within the learning that you're already doing. It's important because spoken language is the primary mode of communication. Now, having said that, if a student is not verbal, obviously there's other ways for them to communicate, but the majority of kids that you work with will communicate through spoken language. And so the more that they have opportunities to do that, the better off that they'll be, meaning share time. Answering questions. One of my favorite activities is, and it's so simple, is just reading a book to the group. But as you read the book, you're asking questions pretty much on every page or every other page. They don't need to be deep questions. They don't need to be, sometimes they are problem solving questions. Sometimes they're, what do you think is going to happen next? Things like that. But you can also just say, like, what color is the pig in this picture, right? You just want them engaging thinking because, again, you're going to then incorporate that cognitive development. And then you're also incorporating the literacy and language within that, as opposed to just reading a book to them. You're able to engage all of that. And early literacy is obviously the building block for all literacy success. So the more that we incorporate that throughout the day, the better off we are. And how do we teach that? Well, there's so many different options. We make books, we read books, we talk about books, we read the room. Reading the room is something I love. Answering questions, ABC Arts and Craft. Make time every day to look at books. Make that a part of your schedule. Make it, show them that this is something that you feel like is important and exciting for them to be able to do. You guys have that great book storage area where you have tons and tons of book. You could bring them in and put them all over the rug and just have the kids explore. They would love, love, love that. Share circles, any of that. All really great ways to be able to expand that literacy and language domain. And then our last domain is the self-help adaptive domain. And what we're talking about in this is how a child adapts to the environment and the ability to do things independently. And it's really important because they're essential to independent living. Without age-appropriate adaptive development, children may have difficulty participating fully in school or even attending birthday parties and sleepovers and all those things that kids like to do. So we want them to be able to wash and dry their hands, clean up whatever they take out, both inside and outside, problem solve, carrying their own things. You can see that problem solving comes up a lot. Undoing their lunchbox, undoing their water bottle, filling things up, taking care of their needs in the bathroom when they're ready for that, putting shirts on and off. All of those things are all the things that we can focus on as we as they move through preschool. I think one of the areas that I see sometimes the most over helping is like packing up their backpacks or getting things in. Now again, sometimes they need that help, but sometimes we can wait and let them try on their own, because the more that they do that on their own, the better off that they're going to be, right? So all throughout the day, we want to think about how are we encouraging those self-help and adaptive skills. Okay, so you have two assignments that are going to be kind of the bulk of what you're going to do now. The first one is I want you to go to the Google Doc that's been shared with you. And there's an area for you to add your quote unquote 30-second explanation of what play-based learning is and how it prepares students for the reality of kindergarten, as well as being lifelong learners. So what I want you to do, because sometimes, like I said, one of the things that comes up is that teachers feel uncomfortable being able to explain that to parents. And so just think of this as kind of your elevator pitch. What would you say if parents came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm concerned that the kids are just playing and that they're not going to be ready for school." So my hint is include information on how the domains guide your instruction and how that is directly related to learning. So that's your first assignment. I want you to really think about that and put that in the Google Doc. And again, everybody has access to this Google Doc. So the cool thing is you'll be able to see everybody's, and then you may want to change yours or tweak yours or use somebody else's because you like the way that's worded. That's great. Just having that kind of in your pocket is really super helpful. And then your next assignment is to go back to the Google Doc that was sent and choose 5 of the themes that are included. And for each of the theme, find 3 to 4 activities for each of the domains. So you're going to go in, there's about 15 to 20 different themes going on. Each of them has an area for each domain. And I want you to go in and find 3 or 4 activities for each of the domains. And so by the end of the day, you'll have a resource guide that you can all use to plan your days and cover all the domains, because I know that that's one of the things that's hard is the time and how do we do it. Well, today you have the time, so you can go in, just kind of jump into Google and find some ideas that look good that would address the particular domain, and then by the end of the day you guys will have a full resource that you can use as you move through the year. So that wraps it up. So you have your 2 assignments to do, the 30-second spiel, quote unquote, and then to come up with your content ideas. All right. I hope that this is helpful and that you get some really great ideas going. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.